What is going on, guys? It's your host, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube, the show where we talk about the most exciting and interesting topics going on in the wide world of sports. As always, thank you guys so much for checking this video out today. I really do appreciate it. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below, and also make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos that we post here on YouTube every single Wednesday. We always have a bunch of great things to talk about in the world of sports, and today is no exception, as today we are going to be previewing the 2020 NBA Finals. I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 30th of September, which is also the day of Game 1 of the NBA Finals, which will be on later on tonight on ESPN at 9 p.m. Eastern. And we have a very interesting final, a final that I think a lot of NBA fans were hoping that at some point we'd get the chance to see. Maybe not in this setting, but nonetheless, it is a very, very fun, exciting final as we have the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Miami Heat. Now, talking about the Lakers, it's really no surprise that they're here. They were projected to be here to start the season. They were one of the top 3-4 teams, if not the top team going into the season to get here. And despite the fact that we had a pandemic that delayed the rest of the season for a couple months, and the fact that they were playing in a bubble with no fans and no home court advantage, the Lakers still did what they had to do, and that was reach the NBA Finals, led by, of course, arguably still the best player in the NBA in LeBron James, and his all-star teammate in Anthony Davis, who the Lakers acquired via trade during the 2019 offseason. And what I think is really also kind of a surreal thing is that the Lakers got Anthony Davis over a year ago, and he's still not finished with his first year with the purple and gold. And I think that just shows you how much the COVID-19 has impacted everything, especially here in the world of sports and in the NBA. But nonetheless, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are matching up against the surprising fifth-seeded Miami Heat, led by, of course, Jimmy Buckets Butler, who I think now is finally starting to get the recognition that he deserves with regards to being one of the best players in the NBA, a guy who just has worked for everything he's gotten, just brings that blue-collar mentality, and it's really just a joy to see. And he's going up with his teammate Bam Adebayo, and just a cast of players that play to the same style and the same intensity that Jimmy Butler plays at. So this is a really, really exciting final. We're going to be previewing just who I think is going to win this series, the news and notes from both teams and how they got there, and also who's going to win the final, and as well as the MVP. So without further ado, let's kick some Mofobo. So we'll first kick things off with talking about the Lakers. Again, as I mentioned before, not a surprise that they are in this position, that they've reached the NBA Finals. This is the first time that the Lakers have made it to the finals in a decade, since 2010, when the late Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace, took the Lakers to back-to-back NBA championships when they beat the Boston Celtics in 7 games. So that was the last time the Lakers were in this position. And when LeBron James, a year and change ago, signed with the Lakers in free agency, this was the expectation. This was what people expected LeBron to do. And he was criticized a lot after his first year, where the Lakers really struggled. He got hurt. They didn't make the playoffs. Everybody was wondering if LeBron just came to LA to, start his movie career or his off-the-court career to a greater extent. But he has proved that he's still focused on winning championships and bringing another championship, and hopefully multiple championships, to the city of Los Angeles. And obviously the Lakers knew that they had to get that big name star to pair up with LeBron James, and they made that massive trade in the offseason to acquire Anthony Davis. And there are talks about the possibility of Anthony Davis signing a long-term deal, and I think the Lakers and Anthony Davis will actually work that out. It'll probably be within the next 2 or 3 months, because we won't have that much of a period between the end of the finals and then the beginning of next season. So I think it'll happen sooner rather than later with that. So that was the big move that the Lakers had to make. They were able to get a bunch of other players that kind of work well with what LeBron is all about. getting some veteran presence like Jared Dudley, Rajon Rondo they already had. They brought in J.R. Smith just before the start of the bubble, and even though he hasn't played very much, he's still been relatively reliable. They still have Kyle Kuzma. They brought in Danny Green via free agency after he won a championship with the Toronto Raptors, and a couple of other really solid players. And really, these are just the type of guys that you expect to see on LeBron James-led teams, especially since he went back to Cleveland. You're just seeing a lot of guys that work well with LeBron, that are really close with LeBron, and just work together, and it just works seamlessly. So it's not a surprise. And of course, LeBron and AD are the big reasons that the Lakers are here, but they've also been able to have a little bit of production from some of their other guys. Even like a guy like Alex Caruso has played very well while playing with LeBron. And I understand that everyone wants to say, well, anybody can play well with LeBron. And to an extent, that's very, very true. I think that LeBron is able to elevate the play of a lot of his teammates. And I think that that's what makes him a tremendous leader, and not just a basketball player, but a tremendous leader nonetheless. The Lakers dominated, not surprisingly, throughout the regular season, claiming the #1 seed in the playoffs. And they didn't have much trouble once they got into postseason play in the bubble. In round one, they beat Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum and the Portland Trail Blazers in the first round after dropping game one, won the next 4 games and won that series in 5. Then they took on James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and the Houston Rockets in round 2, and they beat them also in 5 games. And then they took on what was considered to be the surprise of the Western Conference in the Denver Nuggets, who had just come back from down 3-1 in round 2 against the LA Clippers to advance to the Western Conference Finals. And the Lakers, for the most part, took care of business, winning that series in 5 as well. So the Lakers go into the finals at a record of 12-3, and each series ended in 5 games. So the Lakers, even if they lose a game, and you saw in the first 2 rounds where they lost game 1, it really doesn't rattle them because they just go out and play the way that they're capable of playing. LeBron James is almost averaging a triple-double in the postseason. Anthony Davis averaging basically a double-double. And, with those 2 guys being 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA on the same team, you're going to see a lot of success. And even though basketball, for the most part, is a team game, the NBA has become very heavy on it being a players' league of players just being able to control how games go. And that's what you saw. And the big milestone going into the final for the Lakers is LeBron James has now reached his 10th NBA final in his career. And this is also the 3rd different team that LeBron has taken to the finals. Obviously, he took the Cavaliers several times to the finals. He was with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and the Miami Heat, of all teams, to several finals. And now he's gotten the Lakers in just his 2nd year in the purple and gold back to the NBA finals for the first time in a decade. So that is how the Lakers got to the point that they are now, which is reaching the NBA finals. And speaking of the Miami Heat, let's talk about the Eastern Conference opponent. And that is, of course, the Miami Heat. And I think if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that the Miami Heat would end up being the team that gets out of the East to win and get to the NBA Finals, I wouldn't have laughed you out of the room. I would have just said most likely that wasn't the case because, the first 3 teams that came to mind for me in the East were obviously the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, who the Heat knocked out in the conference finals, and also the Philadelphia 76ers to a lesser extent. But once we got into the regular season, the Heat, right from the jump, they were able to dominate, have a lot of success, play their system so well to a T that it just seemed like it was impossible to shake any sort of confidence that they had. And as a result, they've had the run that they've been able to go on up to this point. Now, this, for the Miami Heat, is the first time that they've made the NBA Finals since 2014 when LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh were there. And during that point from 2010 to 2014, the Miami Heat made 4 consecutive finals, winning 2 of them. So LeBron James was able to learn how to win and what it took to win an NBA championship while being in Miami. And I think a lot of people were kind of wondering, especially myself, about Eric Spoelstra after LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh were pretty much leaving. It was basically a question of, could Eric Spoelstra still, have success? This was the opportunity for us to see if he really was a good coach or was it the team that was around him. And he really, really proved himself over the last couple of years and certainly here in 2020 when you look at the fact that in the 6 years leading up to this point, Erik Spoelstra was still able to take the Heat to 3 playoff appearances, including this year, have pretty much a winning record every single year except one. And slowly but surely, with the help of Pat Riley, who's, in my opinion, one of the best executives, if not the best executive and smartest executive in the NBA, they were able to build the team in more of a vision that Erik Spoelstra wanted to showcase. This is more of the Erik Spoelstra team that we're seeing here. We get to see his true colors, his true, attributes as an NBA head coach. And I think he's proven that he should be one of the top 3 coaches in the NBA right now. If he hasn't already proven that, winning an NBA championship against LeBron, against Anthony Davis, against the Lakers in general, would certainly put him in the top 3 without question. I don't think anybody would be able to argue that. Nobody could say, oh, but he had Jimmy Butler. Yeah, well, when you had LeBron James and you compare him to Jimmy Butler, obviously, LeBron is a better player talent-wise than Jimmy Butler. And I know we could go into discussion about that, but when you look at it from that standpoint, you say, okay, Erik Spoelstra had less big-name star talent, so to speak, and he was still able to win a championship. And it's just really impressive. So again, after 2014, 3 playoff appearances and just building a team that's based around Jimmy Butler and his style of play and what he's all about just has worked so well. And the big reason why the Heat have had success this year, not just in the regular season, but certainly in the postseason. And speaking of Jimmy Butler, the Heat obviously knew that they wanted to take that next step in getting back to being a consistent playoff contender and a NBA Finals contender. And I mean, it worked out in the first year that they're doing it. And it started with the Miami Heat needed to find a main star. They had already Bam Adebayo, but they needed to find that other guy that could really be the focal point of this team, even if he's not the focal point of the offense all the time. And so Pat Riley orchestrated a sign and trade with the Philadelphia 76ers to acquire and sign Jimmy Butler. I believe Richardson was the player that was dealt back to the Philadelphia 76ers, Josh Richardson to be exact. And Richardson actually worked relatively well in Philadelphia. So to an extent, but obviously favoring heavily for the Miami Heat, it's kind of worked out for both teams. But nonetheless, the Heat were able to orchestrate a sign and trade to get Jimmy Butler to Miami. They also added Jay Crowder and Andre Iguodala in a trade during the trade deadline this past year in February. And getting both of those guys was so important because they've both done so well in their respective roles. I did not know Jay Crowder could shoot threes. I always knew him as a guy who could do very well down low. He wasn't a dominant player by any means, but he was a very, very good player. I think he did take some criticism because he obviously was involved in the Kyrie Irving trade a couple of years ago, and then he was in Memphis, and it kind of seemed like, he was just going to be lost in the shadows. But then the Heat make the move to acquire him in a crazy trade with 2 other teams. There was like maybe 11 or 12 players that were moved during that 3-team trade. But the Heat got Jay Crowder and Andre Iguodala, and Crowder becoming now the 3-point shooter that he is just makes him just a more lethal player. And I saw it a lot in the postseason, how well he can shoot from downtown. He doesn't shoot it a lot, but when he gets the opening, 9 times out of 10, he's knocking it down. And that just shows you again that, players are adapting to the way the NBA game has changed. So Jay Crowder had a lot of success with that, and he has just become that much more of an impactful player with Miami. And then getting Andre Iguodala, who basically decided he wasn't going to play for Memphis and sat out all this time. The Heat were able to convince him to come to the Heat, and he has done very well coming off the bench. And speaking of Andre Iguodala, here's a really crazy stat, because we talked about the fact that LeBron James has made his 10th final in his career. Andre Iguodala is actually going to be playing in his 6th consecutive final. He started back in 2015 with the Golden State Warriors, and as we know, won Finals MVP against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he was very, very good for the time period that he was there in Golden State, reaching the Finals 5 consecutive years. And then he goes to the Heat, and boom, make it 6 finals in a row. So already Andre Iguodala is trying to catch up to LeBron James in consecutive finals appearances. And I got to tell you, if this is going to be the first year of a series of years where the Heat are one of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference, I think he's going to get back a couple more times, especially if they're able to find a way to win it. Because if they can win this series, that's going to elevate everybody, and it's going to attract more people to want to go play for the Miami Heat. But going into the regular season, there wasn't that high expectations, but I think the Heat were still considered to be a playoff team. And they did, catch a lot of us by surprise, certainly myself, and they finished, including the 8 games they played in the bubble, they finished as the 5th seed going into the playoffs. And in round 1, they took on TJ Warren, or cash considerations TJ Warren, and the Indiana Pacers in the first round, and beat them relatively easily, sweeping them in 4 straight. I think I even predicted that they were going to win that series in 4 or 5. So that series was not a surprise that the Heat were able to, win and move on. Once we got to round 2 is when I think all of us started to say, well, I think this is probably about as far as the Heat are going to go. But in a shocking turn of events, in some degree, the Heat dominated and kicked the crap out of the Milwaukee Bucks, who everybody, including myself, projected to go to the NBA Finals. They absolutely kicked Mofobo and beat up on the Milwaukee Bucks, winning in 5 games. And if it wasn't for Chris Middleton coming through in Game 4, especially after Giannis Antetokounmpo got hurt and missed the rest of that game, the Heat would have swept aside the Milwaukee Bucks and the MVP in Giannis. I mean, so that was a very big shock. And all of a sudden, we go to the Eastern Conference Finals. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't between 2 of the top 3 seeds in the Eastern Conference. I believe the Boston Celtics were I think they were the 7th seed and the Heat were the 5th seed. So this was a pretty, it wasn't that much of an expectation that these 2 teams were going to be here. So it was certainly a surprise, but it was between 2 teams that I thought were very evenly matched. And the Heat came out like a house on fire and played very well right away, had a 3-1 lead, and it looked like they were going to, breeze past this one. But the Celtics did get an emotional victory back, and I started to wonder if maybe that was going to be the opportunity that the Celtics were looking for to come back and maybe steal the series altogether. But in the end, the Miami Heat, especially led by guys like Tyler Hero and Goran Dragic, they were able to win Game 6 by, I think, 7 or 8 points and move on to the NBA Finals. So the Heat are here, and they are no joke. They really are something to behold. And it's not just Jimmy Butler and Jay Crowder balling out. There are 2 guys that I want to mention real quick because I think they're going to be X factors in this series that have done very well from the start of the season to now. First one is Goran Dragic, who has become the official term of NBA journeyman. I mean, I remember when he came in the league with the Phoenix Suns, and he was dynamic. He was really good, especially distributing the basketball. And I thought this guy was going to be an all-star for many years. Well, he hasn't been an all-star at all. He's been more of a journeyman. And going into this year, he actually was coming off the bench as the 6th man behind Kendrick Nunn. Everybody, because he's the younger player, he's kind of the rookie, second-year guy. They wanted to develop him. But over time, Goran Dragic continued to play more and more and play better and better to the point where Eric Spoelstra had no choice but to play him because he gave the Heat the maximum amount of success. And in the playoffs, Goran Dragic has averaged 21.4 points a game, 4.3 rebounds per game, and 4.5 assists per game. He has been very, very good. And his creativity has allowed so many guys to get open because once Dragic gets, moving and grooving, right? And he starts really having a lot of success shooting the basketball, the defenses have to start locking down on him. And as a result, he's able to kick it out to the outside for guys to shoot the J. Now, obviously, we also have Bam Adebayo, who is a shot-blocking machine, a guy who can really do well down low. And I think it'd actually be a pretty solid matchup when you're having to guard Anthony Davis. And I think that that's what you're going to see with Bam. He's going to be physical. This whole Miami Heat team is a very physical team and plays really good defense. And I think it's going to be a very tough challenge for the offense of the Lakers, knowing that they're very big on going down low. If the Heat can lock it down and play really solid defense down low in the paint, that's going to create problems for the Lakers because they don't have a lot of great outside shooting, consistent, guys. And that's where it's going to start being in favor of the Heat because the Heat have a lot of those guys. And speaking of outside shooters, we have to talk about the newest walking bucket in the NBA, and that is Tyler Hero. Now, if you remember, Paul Pierce, the great Paul Pierce, continued to say that he did not think that Tyler Hero deserved nor should be recognized as a bucket until he averaged 20 points a game. Well, Mr. Paul Pierce, the truth, you don't really you don't really live up to your name because you're spreading a lot of lies at this point, a lot of false narratives. Tyler Hero is averaging pretty much 20 points per game, 6.3 rebounds a game, and nearly 5 assists per game while shooting 52.3% from the field and an impressive 35% from downtown. Now, 35% to a lot of people who may not know basketball might not sound that impressive, but it actually is quite the impressive look. So you got to give credit where credit is due. And I think it is official that Tyler Hero is a walking bucket. And if he continues to shoot the way he's been shooting in the finals, it's going to be very difficult for the Lakers because the Lakers aren't considered to be that great defensive team on the perimeter and the three-point shooting, but certainly down low. And if the Heat get rolling from the outside, the Lakers are going to have a lot of trouble staying with this team. That's the way I look at it. But this is a Heat team that is no joke. They deserve to be here. This is a finals that we've been really looking for. And obviously, it'd be great if we were in normal times and people could travel to both LA and Miami, two of the most glamorous, vacation cities in the United States with all the media and all the hype and everything. But unfortunately, the entire final will be based in Buena Vista, Florida, in a bubble, at Disney, not the ideal place, but it's still going to be an exciting final. Again, game 1 is tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And my boy Mike Breen going to be pulling out all the bangs, all the it's goods, all the puts and ins that you could think of. It's going to be a fun final. And with that being said, that'll lead me now to my prediction for who wins the final, how many games, and who I think will be finals MVP. So let's start with Neil. Who do you have winning this matchup to be crowned the 2020 NBA champions? Well, obviously the safe pick, and I'm not talking about it from a betting standpoint, I'm talking about it from just a analysis standpoint. The safe pick is to obviously pick LeBron James and the Lakers because, you have 2 of the top 5, if not top 3 best players in the NBA right now on the same team. But the NBA and basketball in general is much more of a team game, and defense wins you championships. And for those reasons, I'm going to actually take the Miami Heat in 7 games. I think this is going to be one of the most back and forth entertaining series we've seen in the finals in quite some time, maybe dating back to 2016 when the Cavaliers came back from down 3-1. But I think this will be much more back and forth, Heat win, Lakers win, Heat win, just back and forth like that. I think that's what we're going to see. So I'm going to go with the Miami Heat because I think at the end of the day, there's going to be 2 or 3 really close games that are going to work in the Heat favor because they play that lockdown defense, because also the fact that the Lakers don't shoot well from the outside. And I think the Heat will also smother guys like AD and LeBron down low. But if the Lakers can get their outside shooting going with Anthony Davis, with LeBron, with Kuzma, with Danny Green, with Rondo, with guys like that, then they have a much better opportunity because then if the Lakers are having success down there, I think the Heat are going to run out of, options to really slow that team down. But I don't think that's going to happen. I believe that the Heat are on a very big emotional high. I think that they're prepared for this. They're not scared. And I think they're going to play physical. And some of those guys in the Lakers are not going to be okay with that. And I think that's going to work to the advantage of the Miami Heat. So give me the Miami Heat to win the NBA Finals this year in 7 games. And now, who do I have as my Finals MVP? Well, again, I could pick the most obvious guys, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, but I'm actually going to take a more surprising pick. I'm going to go with Goran Dragic as my Finals MVP. I think at least 2, maybe 3 times in this series, Goran Dragic is going to have to score 25 to 30 points and maybe have a game where he gets 8, 9, 10 assists. I think he's really going to have to take his game to the next level, elevate it even more, elevate the play of everyone else, because I think even though Jimmy Butler is considered to be the leader of the team, Goran Dragic is the point guard. He gets the offense rolling, and when he's going, the rest of that team is just rocking and rolling. So I'm going to give Goran Dragic my prediction as Finals MVP. And if he does do that and win the MVP, I think that's just going to put his name on the map a lot more. I think we're going to give him more consideration as an all-star, and I think we're going to start looking at Goran Dragic as one of the top 10 best point guards in the NBA. So the Miami Heat are going to win this series in 7 games, and Goran Dragic is going to be your Finals MVP. And that is my preview and predictions for this year's NBA Finals. Hey guys, it's your host, Neil Villapiano. Thank you guys so much for checking out this week's video here on Mofobo Network Presents. I greatly appreciate that you guys took some time to check this out. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to leave a like, also subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos that we post every single Wednesday, and also just leave a comment and let me know what you guys think of the video and everything else like that. So please do that. I would greatly appreciate it. If you want to check out more of this YouTube channel, like I said, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, make sure to subscribe to the Mofobo Network Facebook page, where there you can stay up to date with the new videos that we post. We also have a podcast for Mofobo Network. It's called Mofobo Network Podcast, where it's available on Anchor and Spotify. Just like here on Mofobo Network Presents, we post new episodes of the podcast every Tuesday and Thursday, talking about the most up-to-date topics and content in the wide world of sports. So please go like and subscribe to that as well. You can stay up to date with the podcast, just like Mofobo Network Presents as well, on the Mofobo Network Facebook page. You can follow me on my personal Twitter at THENVPSHOW, and also on my personal Instagram at NVPQB11. If you want to continue to check out great content that I put out, you can check me out as the host of the Devils State of Mind podcast, which is the New Jersey Devils hockey team-based podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. On this podcast, in which we post new episodes every single Monday, I talk about all the news and notes and all exciting things happening with the New Jersey Devils, as well as hockey news in general. We have great guests that come on with some just great stories and so much fun. So please go check that out as well. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. So SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, wherever. Just search Hockey Podcast Network or Devil State of Mind, and you'll find it. Please also go check out hockeypodcastnetwork.org, where there you can see all the team-based podcasts and just other great hockey podcasts that we have on this network. So if you're a hockey fan, or if you're not, or if you just want to learn more about the sport, please go check it out, hockeypodcastnetwork.org. We have a Twitter for the Devil's State of Mind podcast at Devil's State. We have an Instagram at Devil's State of Mind. And just like Mofobo, we have a Facebook page where there you can stay up to date with the new episodes of the podcast posted every single Monday. And also on all of those, there is a link to the Devil's State of Mind website, where also if you just bookmark it, you can see all the new episodes that we post. So please go check that out as well and support me on there. And last but certainly not least, go check out my book right now on Amazon.com as well as Barnes & Noble. It's titled JETS Pain, Pain, Pain. It's about the pain and suffering of being a Jets fan for the Jets fan. And so, I mean, obviously you look at the fact that the Jets off to an 0-3 start, not really that great. But this book will certainly help you understand more about, why the team is the way that they are, why they've been this way for so long. We go through a lot of great painful stories, painful moments, painful player decisions, and everything else. So please go check that book out. If you're a Jets fan or a football fan, if you know someone who's one of those, or if you just want to support me, go check it out. It's available for hardcover and ebook for the price of $19.69. And if you're a Jets fan or a football fan, you probably guessed why I chose that price. So please go check it out on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Again, JETS Pain, Pain, Pain. So thank you guys very much once again for checking out this edition of Mofobo Network Presents, and we will see you in the next video. And as I always say at the end of every single video, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what hardships you might be dealing with, just remember, when you wake up in the morning, to think positively, have a smile on your face, and kick some Mofobo. So thank you guys very much, and God bless.